City Lights, welcome back to our series, Atypical, a little look into family life and what is a normal family, what is a functional family, and do we have any examples in God's Word of what a family really should look like. And as we've been in this journey, you know, one thing I've discovered is that there has been no perfect families. There's no perfect families for us to put under the magnifying glass in Scripture. And there are no perfect families in youth group and in our church. And so really what we need to do is to look at different families and learn some different principles of how we can live in our non-typical families, our abnormal families, yet still live with the character and with the care and the love that we are called to in our families. And we've looked at some different families and saw some pretty crazy dysfunction in Genesis, starting all the way at the beginning with Adam and Eve. And this week we have the chance to look and continue in Genesis and look at two brothers, in fact two twin brothers, and that is Esau and Jacob. And even before they were born, I want to read this to you in Genesis 25, verse 22. It says that the children struggled together within her womb. Like even before they were born, okay, these two brothers were struggling with each other, were fighting with each other. And, you know, there are some Jewish stories and folklore that say that they were trying to kill each other in the womb. And the Bible doesn't say it that way, but that's kind of one of the understandings of what this struggling was like. And they're born eventually, and Esau is born first, and Jacob is born second. But he's born holding onto the ankle of his brother. Like even at birth, they were wrestling. Even at birth, they were fighting and they were struggling with each other. And we get this kind of sense right from the beginning here in this story that we can see where this is going to go. It's not going to be good. But also, for me, when I think about this, like in your families, you have these relationships that just seem to always be difficult. They seem to always just be an effort, you know, and others that are not. Others that gel easily and you get on with those members in your family, and then others that you just like, how are we even related? You are just so different to me, and it's so hard to get on with you. And I kind of get that sense here. It's just that they were born so very different and was immediately from the start going to struggle to get along, and there were going to be differences. And we see that as they begin to grow up. And, you know, Esau, he grows up and he's kind of the outdoors guy. He's described as a hunter. And his dad, it says, loved Esau because he loved that he was the outdoor provider, bringing in the game meat. And it said that his dad loved him, whereas as Rebekah loved Jacob. And he was described as very different. He was described as quiet. He liked to cook, and he was at home. He stayed in the dwelling place. He was at home. And so it said his mother loved him. And this word loved, when it describes that Esau being loved by his dad and Jacob being loved by his mom, it kind of gives us this idea of preference. It was they preferred. This was their favored child. And so you've got these two brothers, right, that they're fighting from birth, even before birth, and they grow up to be real different, and there's favoritism in the family. And I don't know if you have ever experienced in your family a favoritism where perhaps a parent seems like they favor one of your siblings. And it's very frustrating and hurtful, actually. And other times your siblings, while you're feeling like that, they may also feel like that. And there may not be any truth to it. Your parents are trying to work in a situation where they've got children with different personalities and different likes and different things that they are good at, different talents, and trying to bring up very different people in the same household. And it seems like sometimes that there's favorites, and it might not always be the case. And sometimes we have to look into our own hearts and our own lives and ask the question, like, am I really looking too much into this? Is there some kind of insecurity that I have that is kind of projecting this onto my parents, this blame that they favor my siblings when they love you just the same as the rest of your brothers and your sisters? In this case, we see it as very clear. There are favorites and there are differences. And so they kind of grow up, and Esau has something that Jacob wants. Esau has the birthright of his father. He has the inheritance that's going to come. He has the firstborn blessing is going to be given to him. And he has something, Esau has this blessing and Jacob wants it. And we get to this weird part of the story where Esau comes back from hunting. He's tired, he's exhausted. And Jacob's been home, he's cooking up this wonderful stew. And his brother says, man, I'm so hungry. I've been out, I'm exhausted. I've been doing all this outdoor work, hunting. Could you give me some of that stew? And he says, I'm not going to give you any unless you give me the birthright. And this kind of conversation kind of goes back and forth. Basically, Esau sells his birthright for some soup and some bread. And he seems to have this something that Jacob wants, but he doesn't seem to value it that much. And he kind of just gives it over. And so Jacob has the birthright is given to him by Esau. And then this craziest part of this story is it gets to the part in their dad's life where he is going to die, and he's coming into the end of his life. He's gone blind, so he can't see, and he hears. That Rebecca, the mom, she hears her husband telling Esau that he wants him to go and kill him some of his favorite meat and prepare him one of his favorite meals and bring it to him so that then he will bless him before he dies. And he goes off to hunt and do what his dad has asked. And while he is out, Rebecca plots with her favorite son how to get her favorite son to get the blessing. And basically what happens here, he dresses up so he would feel like his older brother by putting on goat skin. They cook one of his favorite meals with some goats that they had, and they cooked all this up and they presented it, and he tricks his father into giving him the blessing. And it works. And his brother comes back and presents the meat that his dad has asked him to. And his dad was like, well, then who did I give that blessing to before? And Esau loses it and decides, right, I am going to kill my brother for this. And, so not only does mom help Jacob and plot with him to steal the blessing, but then she turns around and tries to protect him by sending him away to go and live with his uncle so that Esau doesn't kill him. And there's just so much like craziness that's going on in this story: competition, jealousy, deception. There's conspiracies conspiring in the family. There's costumes, there's heartbreak soup. And there's just this whole mess that's going on. And, we kind of think in our family, and you kind of think about the pain and the hurt that Esau, must rightfully have felt at that time. To have been tricked like that, not only by his brother, but by his mom. And it just kind of makes me think about, like in your own families and in my own family, about injustice that there may have been. Like, have you ever experienced anything that was really just unfair? And you just kind of felt like you were being left behind in your family. Sometimes we harbor hurts and resentment and anger because we feel like we've been treated unfairly. Other times You might just really believe that there's someone in your family that is favored, and they always seem to get the favoritism of your parents, and they seem to get the opportunities, and they seem to get the nice things, and the jealousy in us just kind of starts to rise up, and it causes friction. It causes tension. And that's the jealousy in us that is causing that. And, you may look in your family and think, yeah, man, there's been times I've been lied to. And you kind of relate here with the dad in this story. And you look at this whole mess and just say, yeah, I know he must have been really mad. I understand it because I've been lied to by my family members. And you've had your trust broken, and you've had your feelings hurt, and you've just been, hurt by a family member who didn't tell you the truth, who lied to your face. And it's really hard for us to forgive those things. It's hard for us to move on. And we have this season in our life where we have to continue to be a part of that family. We have to be a part of that dwelling, and we don't always know how to handle it. And one of the things that I know to be true is when we're harboring these feelings, whether some of them are real, they're deserved, and some of them are just kind of created, and they wasn't really rooted in something we understood correctly, but we still have these hurts and these unforgiveness and these resentments, and we don't get to kind of decipher these things and figure them out, what was real, what wasn't real, what was fair, what wasn't fair, unless we have these difficult conversations with our family. And I need to ask you if you are someone who pursues those difficult conversations in your family. The story doesn't end there. Years down the line, Esau seeks out his brother, and he goes to him, and he takes 400 men with him, and he finds Jacob, and Jacob hears that he's coming and is afraid. He thinks that he's coming to kill him, and he has all this time, I see in the way he responds, he divides his family into two, so that if Esau attacks, he can't kill all of them, he can only kill half. And his actions show that he is afraid, and it shows that he's been harboring these feelings of things are not right between me and my brother, I wronged him, and that this revenge that may be coming, whether it was deserved or not, he senses that there's something bad coming, that there's this revenge, there's this anger, there's this wrath in his brother that is going to be coming his way. And there was never a time that they talked about these things and asked for forgiveness or tried to make things right. And this is the point at which they're coming back together. Jacob assumes the worst, and Esau, we see in Genesis chapter 32, responds when he finds Jacob in a way that totally surprises us. And it says this in verse 4. It says, Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. There's this moment where I read those words, and they wept, where both brothers are crying. And I just imagine for Esau, it is the tears of letting go the anger and the resentment that he has held towards his brother. And then I think about Jacob and the tears that he cried being tears of regret, tears of, I wish I hadn't hurt my brother, and tears of genuine sorrow, that he's sorry for what he did. And I'm sure he harbored his own, levels of guilt and shame for the things that he did. But in this moment, in this embrace, they are united in this moment of change. And And so, what happens from here, actually they go back to another kind of an argument where Jacob is trying to give Esau these gifts, and Esau's like, no, I have plenty, I don't need what you're giving to me, I'm content, I'm happy with what I have, I don't need all these things. And Jacob's argument, well, I have plenty too, I have more than I need too, and I want to bless you. And eventually, he gets Esau to accept this gift. And it's a really awesome contrast from the beginning of their time where Jacob is only trying to take Esau's blessing, and now he's trying to push blessing onto him. And it's this cool difference that we see between the times and between their attitudes. And sometimes I think, we try and put the things right that we have done wrong in these different ways. And I see that whether it was out of just simple fear that Jacob was trying to put things right, or whether there was genuine, a genuine want to reconnect and to be forgiven, and a genuine love for his brother there. We don't fully know either one of their motives. But what we do see is that this tough encounter, this challenging encounter where they both came into it with history, with hurts, was that there was a willingness to have this conversation that brought them back together for that moment. And ultimately, Jacob doesn't go back with Esau the way that Esau wants him to, and so the whole story doesn't go the way that Esau intends. And that's so typical in families. It's so true in our families. Things don't always go the way that we want them to. We can fight, we can argue, we can be genuinely hurt and forgive members of our family, but things don't always go back. Things don't always go back to how they were. Things change, and that's okay, and that's something we just have to learn and grow to accept. But at the same time, one of the most beautiful things about this story is that even though things didn't completely go back to how they were, that they were able to forgive each other and embrace each other and have that conversation. And in your families, you may be at a point where you say, yeah, I can see where there are opportunities and needs for me to have these difficult conversations, to either ask for forgiveness or to let go of some resentments that I have. Either one of those two positions you may be in. But how do you do that? Well, here's 5 ways. First of all, you can be the person who does the asking. Hey, can we talk about what happened? You be the initiator, be like Esau was, pursued his brother, sought him out, and had that conversation. You can ask, what happened? What's going on here? Why is there so much tension? Second thing is, you can be patient. When they share their feelings and their perspective, you may not always hear what you want to hear. And things may not get corrected or changed as quickly as you hope they will. So you may need to be patient. You need to thirdly listen. Listen more, talk less. And listen to their point of view. They may actually make sense. It may actually be fair and right in some of the things that they're saying. Be willing to listen to them. Number 4 is be honest about what you think and feel. And even when it's hard to share what you're really feeling, just be honest about that and share that with them. And lastly, admit when you're wrong. Admit when you're wrong. And that is a hard process. I want to, just kind of give you these last 3 questions and leave these on here for you to be able to pause this video and really just journal and reflect on these questions. So question 1 is, how do you think a tough conversation could change your attitude or perspective? Question 2, how do you think a tough conversation could change the person you're fighting with? Number 3, how do you think a tough conversation could begin to change your family's pattern of behavior in the long term? Okay, I'm going to leave you to go journal those questions. Check in with us on Zoom, and we will speak again then. Bye.